A rational equation is an equation where at least one denominator contains a variable. So equations involving fractions or rational expressions arise frequently in mathematics. The key to working with them is to manipulate the equation, typically by multiplying both sides of it by some quantity that eliminates the fractional nature of the equation. So what do we want to do first? State the values that make the fraction undefined. Remember, that means the bottom equals 0. So we cannot have those as our solution. Those are our rejects, okay? Then, if necessary, factor any expressions not already factored. Choose the common denominator for the equation. Multiply every term by the common denominators. Reduce each term. Terms are separated by addition and subtraction to form a denominator-free equation. Remember, we're dividing to equal 1 in that step. Solve the resulting equation. If it's x squared, we have to factor by getting it equal to 0, or use completing the square, or use the quadratic formula. And then we want to reject those answers that make the fraction undefined by checking in the original. All right, so let's get at it. Exercise 1. So we want to state any values that make the fraction undefined. Well, there's nothing that's going to make this undefined, or this, because there's no variable. So, factor any expressions not already factored. Done. Choose the common denominator for the equation. So my denominators are 2 and 5, so my common denominator is 10. Multiply each term by the common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this term by 10 and this term by 10. In both sides of the equation, I kept it equal or balanced. I'm going to reduce them. So 2 divides into 10 and leaves behind 5. 5 divides into 10 and leaves behind 2. So now I'm going to distribute this side. So I get 20x plus 25 equals 2x minus 2. Hope you see that. So I multiplied these two things and I multiplied these two things. Then I have to solve this equation. Well, it's a regular linear equation, so I have to get the x's on the same side. So 18x plus 25 equals negative 2. Subtract 25. So 18x equals negative 27. Divide by 18. So x equals negative 3 over 2. So go ahead and pause the video, store negative 3 over 2 into your calculator, plug in the left side, hit enter, plug in the right side, hit enter, and they should be equal. And then come back and either write a check mark underneath to show me you checked it, or write true, but definitely check these. Well, you found out that this was true. So now we'll look at letter B. What is the common denominator? Well, my denominators are both prime, just like in part A. So my common denominator is both of them. So my denominator is 2 minus x times x minus 6, which is the same idea as what I did over here, but I could multiply them and get an actual number, 10. Here I would have to do double distribute, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep it in factored form. It's easier to divide. So do your division. So x minus 2 and x minus 2, x minus 6 and x minus 6. So now I have x minus 6 times x plus 1 equals 4 minus 2x. Well, over here I need to do double distribute or use my box because I have two binomials. So x minus 6 and x plus 1. So those combine, so I get x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 4 minus 2x. Well, I have an x squared, so I have to get it equal to 0 if I want to factor or use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to add 2x and subtract 4. So x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. Are there factors? And I don't know if there are, because if I got complex answers, I may not. So multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 5. The good news is it factors. So x minus 5 and x plus 2 equals 0. X equals 5 and x equals negative 2. Well, I goofed right from the beginning. I forgot step 1. What makes these undefined? So what makes x2 minus x equal 0? Hopefully you said 2. And what makes x minus 6 equal 0? Hopefully you said 6. These are going to be my rejects if I get any of these answers. I did not. So I am in great shape. So those are both my solutions. How do I know that? Because I'm going to pause the video, store 5, check it, store negative 2, check it. I could also graph. I could graph the left side, graph the right side, see where they intersect, and find my x values. Up to you, but pause the video to check. Well, hopefully through the check, you found that both of these were true. So now let's look at exercise 2. What I'm going to propose in exercise 2 is that you try this on your own. So pause again, try exercise 2, and then start again to check your answer. And here's your answer to exercise 2. So first I found out what made it undefined, 0. So I cannot have a solution of 0. Then I found the common denominator to be 4x, so I multiplied both sides of the equation by 4x. On the left side I have 2 terms, so I distributed that 4x to both terms. And then I went through and did my division. I had 2x times 1, so I got 2x. The 4x's divided, so I got 9, equals the 4x's divided, so I got 9. This is a linear equation, so I got x alone. I got the answer of 6. I checked it by storing, and I'm all good to go. So let's try exercise 3A. Then you can do 3B, and we'll see how we do. So my denominators, well, first, what makes this 0? 0. What makes this 0? 0. What makes this 0? 0. So x cannot equal 0. That's what makes it undefined. Now, when you look at all these denominators of 10x, 5x, and x squared, what can I make them all into? So my common denominator is 10x squared. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 10x squared. So on the left side, I get 10x squared times 1 over 10 minus 10x squared times 1 over x equals 10x squared times 1 over 5x minus 10x times 2 over x squared. And I kind of infringed on part B, but that's okay. Now I'm going to do my division. So 10 divides into 10, x divides into x squared and leaves x. 5 divides into 10 twice, x divides into x squared and leaves x. Oops, I didn't write it on the last one. So x squared divides into x squared once. So all my denominators now are 1s. Excellent. So what do I get here? X squared times 1 is x squared minus 10x times 1 is 10x equals 2x times 1 is 2x minus 10 times 1 times 2 is 20. So it's got a squared, so I have to get it equal to 0. So x squared minus 12x plus 20 equals 0. So what are the factors that multiply to 20 and add to 12? Hopefully you're saying 10 and 2. And then your solutions are positive 10 and positive 2. So pause the video to check both of them. Neither of them is my undefined, so they should both work. And they did both work. Alright, so go ahead, pause, and see if you can do part B. If not, I will quickly go through it after you try yourself. Wow, B was quite difficult. So the first thing I did was find out what made it undefined, which was 0. So my solution cannot equal 0. Then I looked at all my denominators and found that 4 was my common denominator as well as x squared. So I multiplied everything by 4x squared. And when I did my division, I got 2x squared plus 12x minus 4 equals x plus 2. As soon as I had a squared, I knew I had to get it equal to 0. And then factor, and because of this 2, I knew I had to do AC box. So I did my AC box over here. And then I got my factors of 2x minus 1 and x plus 6 equals 0. So x equals 1/2 and x equals negative 6, which is not my undefined way up at the top. So I checked my answers in my calculator by storing into the original, and I got trues for both of them. So that's the good news. All right, now on to the ones that look even more scary. But I think these are more common and not as, I don't know, messy maybe? All right, so exercise 4. Exercise 4 also tells us there might be some extraneous roots now, because you've probably been saying all along, why do I have to do step 1? Nothing ever rejects. Well, maybe now it will. So, step 1, what makes these undefined? So I notice that x plus 5, x cannot equal negative 5, because negative 5 makes that 0. I'm going to skip that one right now and go to here. X cannot equal negative 3, because that's what makes that 0. This one I skipped because it's a trinomial. I need to factor what multiplies to 15 and adds to 8. 5 and 3. Oh! They're already up there. I already did those. So we notice that our denominators are monomial, polynomial, or trinomial, and binomial. Did I say that's a binomial? I hope that's what I did say. So we notice that this factors in this one, and this factors in this one. So my common denominator is going to be both factors, because both factors are prime. So it's kind of like way back at the beginning when we had denominators of 2 and 5. They're both prime, so we used both of them. So x plus 5 is prime, and so is x plus 3, so we're using both of them. So we're going to multiply our sides by x plus 5 and x plus 3. On the top, we need to distribute that. Hopefully, maybe, you're to the point where you don't have to write that out. If you're not, then write it out and do your division. If you are to that point, we know in the first fraction the x plus 5's divide out, so we have x plus 3 times x plus 1 plus, they both divide out, 18 equals, the x plus 3's divide out, so I'm going to multiply 9 times x plus 9 times 5, and here we go. Now that first part needs to be multiplied. So at the top of my page, I'm going to multiply x plus 3 and x plus 1. And you can't see that. So we get x squared, 3x, x, and 3. So I have x squared plus 4x plus 3 plus 18 equals 9x plus 45. Again, I have a squared term. I need to get it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 9x and 45. And then I'm going to clean it up. So x squared, 4x minus 9x is 5x. 3 plus 18 is 21 minus 45 is negative 24 equals 0. We like these nice trinomials. So what multiplies to 24 or negative 24 and adds to negative 5? So x and x, negative 8 and positive 3. So x equals 8 and x equals negative 3. Uh-oh! Way back up at the beginning, we got x cannot equal negative 3. So this is a reject. I need to make sure, so pause the video, store 8, check it in the original, plug all of this in, hit enter, plug all of that in, hit enter. They should be equal. Then plug in or store negative 3. When you do this one, you'll get error or undefined. When you do this one, you'll get undefined. It doesn't matter. Undefined cannot equal undefined. You can never have undefined. So that makes negative 3 a reject. If you think you can do part B on your own, go for it. Pause the video. If not, you'll get to hear my explanation. So we're going to figure out what makes it undefined. So x cannot equal negative 6 and x cannot equal 2. I'm going to factor this one. And I'm going to find that it's plus 6 and minus 2, just like these two. So my common denominator is both prime factors. So multiply the left side by x plus 6 and x plus 2, and the right side. Oh, that should be a minus 2. X plus 6 and x minus 2. Again, hopefully you can see the distribute now without writing it out. So these both divide, so I get 4 plus the x plus 6's divide, so I have x minus 2 times x minus 1 equals the x minus 2's divide, so I have x plus 6. I have to do another box for this binomial times binomial. So x minus 2 and x minus 1, I get x squared minus 2x minus 1x plus 2. So 4 plus x squared minus 3x, so minus 2 and minus 1 is minus 3, plus 2 equals x plus 6. I need to get it equal to 0 because I have a squared, so I'm going to subtract x and subtract 6. So subtract x and subtract 6. So I have x squared minus 3x and minus 1x is minus 4x. 4 plus 2 is 6, minus 6 is 0. First one of these today. So this is a binomial, not a trinomial. So is it a GCF or a difference of two perfect squares? So most people say difference of two perfect squares, but x is not a perfect square. X is in both terms. So x is your GCF. So when we take out an x, we get x minus 4. We set both factors equal to 0, so one of them is 0 and the other is 4. The good news is neither of those are undefined, so we're going to pause the video and check them. We should have found that they both are true, so we are good to go. If you have any questions, ask in class. Good luck!